right, this video actually got interrupted. I lost power on my laptop as I was recording. So I'm trying to pick up elegantly where I left off. And the beauty is I can always edit this part out. You know, the video doesn't actually have to hear it, but it's on the video right now. All right, so we successfully completed that particular step. All right, so now I'm moving on to step number 6 on page 359. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to add another component to the page. It says to keep the user updated on the progress while the message is delivered to the mail server, you should add an update progress control to the page. And that's kind of interesting, right? So instead of just putting a message on the screen, we're going to actually add something to the page that's doing something so that the user's not like, what's going on, right? And that's a real common thing. So you think of like when you're in your operating system and you hit a button, you want to see your spinning hourglass or the spinning wheel or whatever it is, just so you know something's happening. And that's really... Right. And that's an important component of working with basically, you know, any sort of user interface. People want to know that the system's still up and running. You know, one of those real simplistic things. Okay, so I'm reading the instructions here for step 6. And they want us to add an update progress control to the page, and then we're going to put an image inside there that's animated. So the image is going to have some motion to it, and then that will kind of give the illusion that something's happening. Doesn't really, you know, and I want you to, to consider that real carefully. Well, something is really happening, but the movement of the object isn't really the happening. You know what I mean? All right, it says to add the image, locate the folder where you extracted the files with this book, and we're going to pull that image over. So when I unzip the book files, I place them, I thought I placed them here. Actually, they're up here. And in the resources folder, we're in chapter 10. We want to open the Monochrome folder. See the little spinning wheel? No, here it's not spinning, but it will be. All right, so we want to grab that file and put it into the images folder of the Monochrome theme. So I'm just going to move this out of the way, and then I'm going to arrange my folders here before I do the dropping. So there's my images folder. I'm just going to take that GIF and drop it right into that folder. And you can see it located right there. Now we want to do the same thing with the other one. So let's go to the dark gray. So why do they bother to have two different images? Well, the two different themes have different colors, and the one color might not work so well with the other one.
Well, I did notice that if you look at the images, one has a gray background and the other one has a slightly dark background. Mm-hmm. Which probably matched the color.
That's right. Somebody took the time to design it so that it looked good on whatever page it was going on to, so that's why we have two different versions. That is smart, so they thought about it. Now we need to jump into the CSS file, and we're going to be going to the Monochrome CSS file, and that, of course, is in the Monochrome folder. And they want us to go all the way down to the bottom, and we're going to type in the following CSS style. All right, so if you want to go ahead and get that in there, I'm not sure if you're copy pasting or typing really fast, but there's the information. Do the same thing for the dark gray. So we're going to drop the same exact code in there. So we're going to go to the dark gray CSS, once again way at the bottom, and paste it in. And then I'm just doing a little highlight here and hitting my tab key to indent it. And that's optional, you know. when you got to remember, whenever you format your code in an editor, you're doing it for your sake, not for the computer's sake. I did get an email this past week from a student, and she's working on a site that's getting to the point where she has a lot of code, both HTML and CSS. And she's like, I'm getting to the point where I'm having a hard time reading it. And I got like a div inside of a div inside of a div inside of a div, and I don't know where one starts and one ends. So the one tip I was giving her, and I don't know if I really have a good example here, but if you're working with divs, whenever I'm creating them, I'll do something like this. Let's say I say ID, I'll just give it some random ID, and then you create the closing one. But then you put other stuff in between there, including other divs. So my habit, and I usually try to push this on students, is whenever I put one in, I say and that particular ID, so I put it right with that div so I know which one goes with which. Now, in a tool like this, we still have these like little collapsing bars, so that helps in Visual Studio. Even Notepad++ has that capability, but some editors don't. But regardless of that, it's still easy to make a mistake. So this, yeah, that structure is critical. I mean, keeping track of that, and also, coming up with strategies for formatting the code. And if you're working in an editor like Notepad++, which doesn't really auto-format, then you're going through manually doing it. That's one nice thing about working with a tool like Visual Studio or Dreamweaver, where there's tools built in where you can highlight a section of code, give it a right click or a couple of menu clicks or whatever, and it puts things into the indents in the hierarchy that fits the code.
The comments are really necessary to label and
I agree. They are really necessary. All right, so that was completing step number 8. Responding. All right, so let's move on to step number 9. Go back to the contact form control page, the ASCX page. It says below the closing tag of the update panel, down here, drag and update progress control from the Ajax extensions area. So here's the update progress control, and I'm just going to drop it down in here, and it fills it in automatically. It says set its associated update panel ID to say update panel 1. Oh, and I'm already doing the wrong thing, because that's not the thing that they're talking about. All right, and I know a few of you got stuck here. Is that correct? Everybody's like pensively waiting to watch me mess up also. All right, so what the? You guys are so kind. So what they're talking about in the book is this. As soon as I can get it copied from my PDF here. And this is an attribute that gets dropped directly in. So I'm just going to add it right here. Add a space. And just to give you an understanding of what this is doing, this is telling you that it's going to give you update progress for that particular control. And that's assuming that your update panel is named update panel 1, which hopefully it is. Okay. The other thing that I want you to do is add some additional code here. Now I'm doing the indenting manually, just so that I can keep track of where things are. You see the format I set up here, and I'm also going to create a little extra space in there. All right. The whole point of this, of course, is to tell the people exactly that. Like, please wait. And that's like one of those like virtues of computing, honestly, right? When you click a button, you sometimes have this like thought that things should happen instantaneously, not realizing that there's different levels of machines. Machines have different processors. They have different ages, different amounts of RAM, different amounts of programs running, different network speeds, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, all of which could either make things happen instantaneously or wait. And, you know, I'm working on a relatively old machine, but it is an i7, and it has all SSD stuff inside of it, so it's pretty quick. So if you're sitting on your machine and I click on something and it's like that, and you're still waiting, it doesn't mean that you did something wrong. Give it a second. All right. All right. So what they would like to do now in step 11 is we're going to add a little snippet of code to the code behind the control, basically that simulates a wait. So we're going to run a timer for 5 seconds, and then the code will go. You know, just to make it wait. Yep, the 5,000 is the milliseconds. Let me grab that code and copy it, and then I'll show it to you on the screen here. All right, so let's go to the code behind for the ASCX page. So contact form ASCX, and then the C# file. All right, and we want to add it to the section just below the visibility of the controls and the methods. So let's see where that is here. Right down here at the bottom. So we're going to paste in this code. Right, so that 5,000, as somebody surmised, that's 5 seconds. This is in milliseconds. So you can control that. All right, so now they want us to go ahead and once again launch this page. So let's just go ahead and bring up the site. I'm going to go to the contact page. I'm going to notice the please wait. 4, 5, go. Where's the picture? The picture didn't load. Oh no. Mine didn't load. All right. Some people were noticing that the little image didn't come up because we're hoping for a little spinning wheel here, right? And somebody mentioned that it didn't have the right permission to be in there. Now, part of that is how you bring the file in. So let's go back to Visual Studio here for a second and take a look at those two files. And when you say you had to give it permission, how did you give it permission exactly? You, sir, have permission to proceed? Okay. Right click. Yeah, mine doesn't say that, does it? Yeah, but see, you're making the point now. Yeah, but he was able to get his to work. All right, so let me click on this one here.
Here's another thing, try it in another theme, because it might work in the other theme. I had a problem where it only worked in one theme.
All right, let's give that a shot. I'm gonna like reload the contact page, and I'm gonna take it one step further, and I'm gonna do a Control F5. So make sure I'm doing a hard refresh here. Let's once again type this stuff in. And there's always the possibility I didn't get all the code in there correctly either. So let's not discount that. So what fixed it? Control F5. All right. It was cached. That is correct. So I'm going to go back to contact again, but this time I'm going to switch themes. All right. I'm going to try the same procedure. Yeah, I do have the advantage that I've done this before. That's true. Good question. So we're trying to figure out like why it might not be working for some people. We talked about the Control F5 thing. Some people are wondering if I use the books code or the code that I created previously. And then on top of it all, we have the whole issue with the email. Is the email part sending or not sending, or is it writing to a file? But please remember with that email thing, you can always just have it write to a file. That's absolutely fine. You'll get all your points. I really don't care if it really sends. But the fact that I copied the code from the book, where does the email information go? It goes into here. So I am using my settings for email. And please keep in mind, folks, that if you want to use these exact same ones for yours, please feel free. Yeah, my server is open for you. Just don't please like send any spam with that account. And put your own email address in here. But if you use that, like the code that they give you in the book to write to a file, that'll work every time no matter what. So do that if you get stuck. Okay, next section we're moving into now talks about a thing called web services that it's basically a component that allows our application or website that we're building to have an open line of communication with the server, kind of like on a dedicated path of communication. The thing that they'll point out to you is that they have this thing called the Windows Communication Foundation, the WCF, that is kind of a platform for moving the information back and forth. And this is actually a replacement of an older technology, but it is a really important technology. And there's actually, it can be a kind of a deep field of study if you just study that. All right, now I guess I really don't have too much more to say about it. I'd rather just get right down to the coding it. But we are going to create a service now, and we're going to see how it operates within the scope of the application. So once again, I'll move this off to the side. All right, so let's go back to Visual Studio. And they want us to create a new folder. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start collapsing down some of my work here just so I can get it all on the screen. Let's go ahead and add a new folder. And this folder they would like called Web Services. They're making a note in the book as I'm reading this. They say it's not really necessary that you put it in a separate folder, that it's a good practice just for organization's sake. All right. All right, now we're going to right-click the folder, and we're going to add a new item. And the item they want us to click is the Ajax-enabled Wcf Service Item. And I'm not going to go hunting for it. I'm just going to come up here and start typing Ajax and see if it narrows down, and it did. We want to make sure it's in C#. They would like this called name service. Go ahead and click Add once you've done that. And you can see it drop that file inside there. Now notice as it opens up that this is kind of a little different in terms of how it's putting it together. Notice that there is a C# file. You guys see that? But when I look over here and I see the name service, I don't see a code behind page that goes with it, right? Which is where we're used to seeing it. What happens, and notice here it says code behind is where? It's in the app code folder. So that's a convention that happens. So and the reason for that is this is code that's going to execute independently of that object. Okay? So we can actually use that in many places, and it really is kind of a standalone program of sorts. I'm moving on to step 4 now, page 370. All right, so we're opening up the code file, and we want to come in here and rename this method here that's called doWork, and we're going to change the name of it to Hello World. Right. Why do we want to change the void, Java people? Yeah, because it's actually going to return something, right? So we're going to change that void to string. Oops. And we also need to set it up so that it accepts a string. And we're going to call that name. My students are razor sharp here and they're catching all of my mistakes. And yes, they do want this to be lowercase. You're correct. One is a class and one's a data type. Okay, and those of you that are learning Java simultaneously with this class, because many are, the class string has a whole library of methods that go with it. In Java, when we learned about strings, we realized that strings are only classes, but in this language, they're also data types. Got that? So there's a class version and a data type version, and in this case, they want us to use the data type version. So we'll do exactly what the book asks for. Now, the other thing that we need to put inside here in the return statement is we need to add a little snippet of text so it actually does what we need. So right after return, we have to actually put something there, and that's why it was underlined. That looks like this. And can you guys anticipate what this is going to do? It's going to say hello, whatever you're sending to it. So if I throw Joe at it, it's going to say hello, Joe. Right. You're making a point in step number 5 that if you try to request this page directly, it is going to tell you that it's not going to work, basically. And they have a little screenshot here in the book of that you'll get a screen that looks like this. I'm not going to demonstrate that, but basically just know that this isn't the page. Okay, in this next try it out exercise, we're going to do something, ramp it up basically another step here. And it says, in this exercise, you're going to register your web service inside a script manager proxy control. And that's going to make it available basically in one isolated area. And then we're going to create some JavaScript that's going to allow you to leverage that control and then send information back and forth to that page. All right. So we need to create a new web form. We're going to put it in the demos folder. And they want this one called what do they want to call them? I'm trying to find it. Webservices.aspx. It's like you look away for a second and you lose your place. Webservices.aspx. Oh, but they want us to base it on our custom template, right? So here I am doing it wrong. Where's my base page? Yeah, at least I caught myself before I completely messed it up, right? Let's make sure we're in C# on top of it all. There's my base page. Web Services ASPX. All right. Go ahead and click Add. You want to make sure that we give it a title. And here they're saying Web Services Demo. All right, once you've done that, then they want us to pull over a script manager proxy control. And they want us to put that into the CP main content placeholder area. And if you look carefully at step number 2, they also take it up another step, and then inside these tags they're adding a little bit of code. So I'm going to split these up, and then we're going to add the following to the middle of it. So it should end up looking something like this. Then it says right below the script manager proxy, they want us to add an input text button. They want us to drag it over from the HTML category of the toolbox. They don't want something from the general controls up above. They want you to grab it from here. So follow what they say. So once again, input text, and just want to make sure I'm putting it right where they want it, which is right below the script manager proxy. And then they also want us to drag in input button. So input button. They do want us to make some tweaks to it. They want this to say your name. And they want this one called say hello. And they want a value here, so that, in other words, the text on the button to say hello. Save that. Now we're going to add a little bit of JavaScript. We're going to put it right here in line. So it's going to go right below the hello button. I'm just formatting a little bit, make it look a little bit nicer. Next thing that we need to do is we need to add an event handler of a JavaScript one, an onClick, and we're going to add that to the say hello button. So here's the say hello button, and then right here in this spot, we're just going to say onClick. Sorry, give me double quotes. And we're going to say hello world. And notice if you did it right, it's going to find it within your application, parentheses and semicolon. And basically what that's going to do is when you click that button, it's going to run this function, and that function is going to set your name, which it's going to be pulling in from the your name text box, and then it's going to run the name service, which triggers that application, and it's going to do a post back and a call back to the server, and then send the information and repopulate it on the page. So let's just very quickly do a save of all our work. And let's get this page up in the browser. So I'm just going to go directly to that page, right-click, View in Browser. All right. And I'm going to type in some text and say hello. Okay. It's a very simplistic JavaScript, but once again, this is running Ajax. We're not redrawing the page in any way, shape, or form. Now, another technique for doing a similar type of approach is something we call Paige Methods, and that's the last technique that they're introducing here. These are not the WCF services that we just have seen, but a separate type of coding approach. And really what it revolves around is the fact that you're going to be writing the code for it to make it do the work, as opposed to using some of the tools that are leveraged within. All right. Now, I'm trying to figure out what page they want us to work on here. And I'm at the bottom of page 379. So we're going to go to our front-end master. Let's bring that up on screen. And then they want us to add an attribute. So in the enable page methods thing, so we're looking for the script manager, which is right here. And right after the run at server attribute, you want to add this one, not that one. Or maybe I'll just type it in. Okay, now they want us to open up the code behind page. Inside the page load method. Oh, not inside the page load method. I'm sorry. It's like my mind completes the blank here when I look at this. Add the following server-side method within the class, but outside the page load method. It does say that pretty clearly, I suppose. Look familiar? Kind of the same thing we just did in the other one, right? That's why it should look familiar. All right. Notice that this is not being recognized. So once again, Java people kind of like smacks a little bit of some of the stuff we do in the other class. This requires an import statement. And if you click on this, excuse me, right-click it, click on it, come on. I am in the code behind page of the web services file. But this does require a library that we don't have listed. So I'm just going to add it manually here. We just type using system.web.ui, oh, excuse me, so just services. All right, and then you notice that that underlines. All right, I am now moving on to step number 3 on page 380. All right, so switch to markup view. And that means we have to be on the page. Okay, so we're in markup view. and it says set the ID of the button. So where's our button? Right here. They want us to set that to, oh, I didn't need to untype that, I guess. Say hello page method. Got that? Any other changes I have to make? Actually, you know what? I'm going to save myself some time here. I'm just going to copy the whole darn thing and replace it. So I'm just going to replace that with what's in the book. Ultimately, what you want it to look like is this. Now notice that this is a different name than the one that we used before, right? But that matches what? Does it match this? No, right? You would think it would match. But notice that this is a web method. So what it's telling you is that that page method denotation here is being basically assumed because we're using that square bracket web method thing. See how that works? Yes. Shake your head yes and pretend like you understand. But we don't have it because we don't have it, so what we need to do is actually come down here and we're going to throw that in right here. And you can throw it in just, it doesn't matter where in the script section you throw it in, just as long as it's there. All right, Control S to save. And let's be brave and launch it and see what happens. Now, what's this going to do? The same thing that we just did before. We're just using a different approach to do it. So we're typing in our code. Yay! All right, so that completes all the exercises for the chapter and thus this video.